My name is Ethan Walker. I'm 23 years old. And at a Sunday lunch, my uncle casually revealed he'd been sending $50,000 a year to my parents for my college fund. $250,000 gone. I had been scraping by on diner wages and warehouse shifts, drowning in loans, while my brother Tyler drove new cars and jetted off to Tokyo, Paris, and Bali. The roast on the table went cold. My hands shook under the plate. But what they didn't know was, before I continue, tell me where you're watching from, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by your own family. Because what happened to me wasn't just unfair. It was theft disguised as love, favoritism wrapped up as sacrifice. And trust me, the deeper this story goes, the darker it gets. I didn't know it back then, but the signs were always there. Every small moment from childhood was like a breadcrumb leading me straight into that Sunday where the truth finally detonated. I remember dinners around the old oak table in the Walker house. My mother, Diane, always hovering with a serving spoon in her hand. My father, Richard, with his glass of bourbon. And Tyler, my younger brother, sitting in the middle like the sun we all had to orbit. One night sticks with me. I was 10. Tyler 8. Mom scooped roast beef onto his plate, thick slices glistening under the yellow kitchen light. Then she glanced at me and dropped a limp pile of steamed broccoli. I told myself it didn't matter. I liked vegetables. But the truth, it stung. The message was clear: he got the feast. I got the scraps. I swallowed it. But it carved deeper than I thought. High school wasn't much different. I worked harder than anyone I knew. Staying up late, memorizing debate cases, practicing speeches. Senior year, I won first place at the state debate competition. They gave me a medal, a cheap one that still felt like gold around my neck. I looked into the crowd, hoping to see my parents beaming. But halfway through, their seats were empty. Later, I found out they'd left early. Tyler had soccer practice. He'd sat on the bench the whole game. But still, they chose him over me. That medal sat heavy on my chest that night. Not because of pride, but because it felt like proof I'd been invisible all along. I didn't know it then, but it would matter later. When I started college, the divide grew sharper. Money was tight. They said, always tight. I asked for just $200 for books my first semester. And Dad shook his head. You're strong, Ethan. You'll figure it out. Tyler needs this trip more than you need a new textbook. That same week, Tyler posted photos from Miami sunset on the beach. Poolside cocktails. Hashtags about living his best life. My best life was learning to stretch a box of cereal into 2 weeks of dinners. There was the winter Tyler crashed the family car. He'd been drinking, though no one said it out loud. Dad pulled me aside the next morning. Take the blame, he said quietly, like it was already decided. You're more responsible. You can handle it. I nodded, numb, and told the insurance it had been me. My record took the hit. Tyler got a brand new replacement car 6 months later. I didn't even get a thank you. I told myself it was family loyalty. But inside, the betrayal was coiling like a snake, waiting for the right time to strike. The holidays were the worst. Thanksgiving dinners where Tyler carved the turkey while I washed the dishes. Christmas mornings where he unwrapped gadgets, watches, new sneakers, while I got socks. One year, I remember the snow falling heavy outside, the kind that makes the whole neighborhood glow. Tyler got a shiny gaming console. I got a used coat one size too small. Dad clapped me on the back. Practical gift. You need to toughen up, Ethan. I laughed weakly, pretending it was fine. But my chest ached. That coat barely kept out the cold. And somehow, neither did their love. College should have been my fresh start. Instead, it became my battleground. I picked up 2 jobs: warehouse shifts hauling pallets until my back screamed, cafe shifts brewing lattes with a forced smile. I told myself it was temporary, that someday I'd graduate and finally step out of Tyler's shadow. But every night, lying in my shoebox apartment, staring at the ceiling cracked with water stains, I felt the weight of loans stacking higher and higher. I didn't know it back then, but every shift, every overdraft fee, every sleepless night was building the file I would later use as my weapon. Mia, my coworker at the cafe, noticed before anyone else. She'd catch me nodding off while wiping counters, hands blistered from the warehouse. "Ethan, you okay?" she asked one night, her voice sharp but kind. I brushed it off. "Just tired." She frowned. "That's not just tired. That's survival." I didn't answer, but her words stuck. I didn't know it then, but Mia's blunt honesty would be the echo I needed when everything finally blew apart. Professor Coleman, too. He was my academic advisor, one of the few people who looked past my quiet exterior. After one exam, he stopped me. "You have a sharp mind, Ethan. Don't let the noise drown it out." I wanted to tell him the noise wasn't just school. It was my entire family, my entire life. But I swallowed it. Still, his words clung to me like a lifeline. "Don't let the noise drown you out." And then came the account. I'd forgotten my dad's name was still listed as co-signer on my old bank account. I was 17 when we set it up, just so I could get a debit card. Years later, I barely remembered, until one night. After an exhausting shift, I opened my banking app and saw $1,200 missing. My rent money gone. I froze, staring at the numbers. My heart pounded so loud I swore it shook the walls. That money was mine. Every dime earned through sweat and sleepless nights. I called my mom first. She answered cheerfully, then went quiet when she heard my voice. "Why is there money missing from my account?" I demanded. She sighed. "Your father transferred it. Tyler's Tokyo trip deposit was due." I nearly dropped the phone. "You stole my rent money to pay for Tyler's vacation." My voice cracked with rage. Her tone turned sharp. "Don't use words like that. It's all the same pot. Ethan, we share as a family." I laughed bitterly. "Funny. I don't remember Tyler sharing his cars with me, or his vacations, or his opportunities." She tried to guilt-trip me again. "You're stronger. You can handle it." Tyler needed this more. That night, something shifted in me. I cried real, guttural sobs that left me breathless. But when the tears dried, something else remained: clarity. They weren't going to change. They didn't even see it as wrong. To them, I was the sacrifice. Always had been. Always would be unless I stopped it. So I went to the bank. The teller was sympathetic, but her words cut like glass. "Since your father is still on the account, the withdrawal is technically authorized." Technically authorized. I sat in my car afterwards, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Rage burned in my chest, cold and steady. That was the day I swore to myself never again. I didn't know it then, but that stolen rent money would be the final push. It wasn't just the theft. It was the revelation that they saw me not as their son, but as a resource, a bank account, a safety net for Tyler's dreams. That was the day I began to separate every piece of my life from theirs. That was the day revenge stopped being a fantasy and started to look like survival. The more I think back, the more I see the pattern wasn't random. It was deliberate, baked into every year of my life. There was a Thanksgiving when I was 15. Snow had just started falling, flakes drifting down onto the cracked driveway, turning gray the second they touched the asphalt. Mom pulled a golden turkey out of the oven, the smell filling every corner of the house. I reached for a slice, but Dad stopped me with a sharp look. "Wait for Tyler. He's the one carving." Tyler strutted in wearing a brand new sweater, the kind with the price tag still dangling. He carved a jagged piece, dropped it on his plate, then grinned at me. "Don't take too much, Ethan. Save room for dessert." Everyone laughed like it was a joke. I smiled too. But my chest burned. I didn't know it back then. But moments like that were rehearsals for the humiliation to come. Christmas was no different. One year, I tore open a small box to find a second-hand wallet, creases on the leather. Faint initials of someone else, still pressed into the corner. Tyler. Meanwhile, unwrapped a brand new gaming console. Lights flashing across his face as he whooped with joy. Mom kissed his cheek. "We wanted you to have something special." Dad turned to me, nodding at the wallet. "It's practical. You'll thank us later." That night, I sat on my bed staring at the wallet in my hands, empty and heavy, while Tyler screamed with laughter from the living room, his new console blasting neon light into the hallway. Even birthdays weren't safe. For my 17th, Mom baked a small cake, vanilla, plain, store-bought icing. Tyler's 18th, though, was a production. Balloons lined the porch. A rented DJ shook the neighborhood with bass. A whole backyard full of people toasted him like he was a prince. I stood at the edge of the crowd, clapping politely, pretending I didn't notice the cost of the party could have paid for my textbooks twice over. College brought no relief, only sharper edges. Every semester, I begged for help with rent, with books, with groceries. Every time, the answer was the same: money's tight. Ethan, you'll manage. Meanwhile, Tyler's Instagram became a slideshow of luxury Barcelona rooftops, Dubai beaches, ski slopes in Switzerland. I used to scroll late at night, sitting in my freezing apartment, shoving spoonfuls of cold beans from a can, and wonder what it felt like to be worth spending on. There was one summer I'll never forget. Tyler wrecked another car, his second. Dad called me at work, his voice low, urgent. "We can't let this ruin him. Insurance will skyrocket. We'll tell them you were the driver." I felt the phone slip in my sweaty hand. "Dad, that's not fair." His voice hardened. "Life isn't fair. You're tougher. He's fragile." So I lied, signed the papers, took the blame. My record carried the stain, while Tyler smiled in photos next to his replacement car, gleaming black paint, bow on top like it was Christmas in July. Sometimes, it wasn't even big events. Sometimes it was in the small, everyday cruelties. I'd come home from a warehouse shift, my shirt soaked through with sweat, hands raw, and find Tyler lounging on the couch. He'd glance up, smirk, and say, "Don't work too hard. Bro, someone's got to keep the lights on." He thought it was funny. I laughed along, choking on the bitterness. And Mom, she had a way of making it sound like love. "Ethan, you're strong. You don't need as much as Tyler. He's delicate. He needs more support." She'd say it with tears in her eyes, hand warm on my cheek, as if her manipulation was maternal devotion. I used to believe her. I used to think being the strong one was a compliment. Now I know it was an excuse, a license to drain me dry. I didn't know it back then. But every guilt trip, every brushed-off request, every "you'll figure it out" was shaping me into someone they couldn't recognize later. Someone cold, calculating, unwilling to swallow another ounce of their poison. One flashback still claws at me. Junior year of college. Finals week. My car broke down. Transmission shot. I called Dad. Desperate. "I can't get to work. I can't get to class. I need help." Silence. Then, "Sorry, Ethan. Money's tight." That night, I took the bus across town, standing under flickering fluorescent lights at the depot, the smell of urine and stale cigarettes choking the air. My phone buzzed. Tyler's Instagram, him grinning with friends at a rooftop bar. Captioned, "Life's too short not to enjoy it." I laughed out loud. A hollow, bitter laugh that echoed off the empty bus stop. I didn't know it then, but that was the night my faith in family cracked. Even holidays as an adult twisted into reminders. Last Thanksgiving, I carried 2 pumpkin pies from the cafe where I worked, trying to contribute something. I walked in, arms aching, the smell of cinnamon clinging to me. Mom barely looked up. Oh good. Dessert. Put it by the store-bought ones. 10 minutes later, she was gushing over Tyler's girlfriend for bringing a bottle of wine. So thoughtful. My pies sat untouched until the end of the night, congealed and forgotten. I stood in the kitchen scraping them into the trash while everyone else laughed in the living room. My throat ached with words I didn't say. Looking back, the signs were flashing red, screaming at me. But I kept quiet. Always quiet. Because I thought silence was strength. I thought swallowing pain meant loyalty. I thought if I just kept my head down, someday, they'd see me. Finally see me. I didn't know it then. But all those silences were stacking like bricks, building the wall I would eventually use to shut them out for good. It started small, always small like hairline cracks spreading through glass before the shatter. The first fracture came with my bank account. One Friday night, I just finished a brutal double shift at the cafe and the warehouse. My whole body buzzed with exhaustion, every muscle sore, the smell of grease and sweat clinging to me. I opened my banking app in the parking lot, planning to grab groceries on the way home. My balance was way lower than it should have been. At first, I thought I'd miscalculated. Then I saw a withdrawal for $1. Down by my rent money. The air around me felt thin, like I couldn't breathe. That account had one cosigner from when I was a minor, my dad. I called Mom, my voice trembling. She answered too brightly, like she'd been rehearsing. Oh, Ethan, your father transferred it. Tyler's Tokyo trip deposit was due. My throat closed. So you stole my rent money to pay for his vacation. Don't use words like that. She snapped. All sweetness gone. It's all the same pot. We've always shared. But I knew better. I had been the only one putting money into that account for years. I hung up shaking, feeling stripped bare. That night I cried. Not just because of the money, but because I realized they never saw it as mine. Anything with my name on it was theirs. 2. The cracks widened when the phone calls began. At first, it was Mom, pleading, then demanding, then scolding. Stop overreacting. Don't make this worse. This is family business. Dad's voicemails came at night. Rehearsed like a bad actor. Son, come by. We can work this out. The worst were from relatives, my aunt sighing. You've embarrassed your parents enough. My grandmother's frail voice leaving a voicemail that stabbed me in the chest. Ethan, family is more important than money. Don't let pride ruin us. Pride. That was their weapon now. They twisted my pain into arrogance. Painted me as the ungrateful child. I could almost hear my parents' voices feeding them lines, spinning the narrative until I was the villain. I'd never felt so alone. Then there was Tyler. He didn't bother pretending. He smirked when he passed me in the hallway at the house one weekend. Still mad about that, man. You've always been dramatic. You should thank me. Those trips made me who I am. He sipped his protein shake like he'd won something. His arrogance hit me harder than any punch. I wanted to grab him, shake him, make him understand what it felt like to starve while he globetrotted, but all I managed was a cold, shaking laugh. The warehouse became my cage. 12-hour shifts under buzzing fluorescent lights. The air thick with dust. My hands cracked from lifting boxes. My back screaming with every load. And still, I couldn't keep up. I'd walk home, bones aching, then scroll through Instagram and see Tyler toasting champagne in first class. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Couldn't have done it without you. I'd laugh bitterly in the dark. Because he was right. He couldn't have done it without them. Without my sacrifice. The breaking point came one night at my parents' house. I didn't wait for Sunday lunch. I drove straight there after work. Fury carrying me through the door. Dad sat in his chair, remote in hand, looking up with mild irritation, like I'd interrupted his peace. "Give me my money back," I said, calm, cold. He muted the TV. "We told you. We'll put it back next month." "I don't have next month. Rent is due Wednesday. You'll transfer it tonight." Mom's voice floated from the kitchen. "Ethan, you need to calm down now. You need to stop treating me like a bank account. This ends now. You take one more dollar, and I file a fraud report." The silence was electric, thick enough to choke on. Dad's face darkened, but he didn't move. No. Tyler descended the stairs at that moment, tugging on a jacket. "What's going on? Your brother's throwing a tantrum," Dad muttered. Tyler smirked, slipping his arms into his sleeves. "Over a couple $100. Relax. Man, you're always working. Just pick up another shift." I turned to him, voice low, ice cold. "One day, you'll lose everything you think is guaranteed, and I'll be there when it happens." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Sure. Tough guy." And then he walked out. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just repeated, "Transfer it. Tonight. Or tomorrow morning." I filed a report. By the time I got back to my apartment, the balance was restored. No apology. No explanation. Just numbers on a screen. And that was when it hit me, not relief, but clarity. They would never change. They didn't see what they did as wrong. They'd keep taking until I was empty. Until there was nothing left. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. My hands ached from work. My throat raw from holding back rage. But for the first time, I felt a sliver of something sharper than pain. A resolve that whispered, "Enough." The silence after that night should have been a relief. No calls. No texts. No forced Sunday lunches. But silence from my parents was never peace, it was strategy. If they weren't calling, they were plotting. I thought maybe I had some breathing room. But then the whispers started. Cousins messaging me. "What's going on? Your dad said you threatened legal action." An aunt leaving a voicemail dripping with disappointment. "You're too proud. Ethan, just let it go." My grandmother's voice cracked on the line. "Family sticks together. Don't let pride ruin us." It was like déjà vu. Every time I tried to defend myself, the story twisted. They were building a wall of shame around me, brick by brick, and using the word pride as cement. I realized it wasn't enough for them to steal my money, they needed to steal the narrative too. And then came Tyler's Tokyo trip. His Instagram filled with first-class tickets, sushi platters, neon-lit selfies, captions like "living my best life. Thanks, Mom and Dad." It felt deliberate, like a knife twisting. I'd work a 14-hour day, collapse on my couch, and there he was on my phone screen, clinking glasses in another country on my dime. That's when Mia at the cafe noticed. We were closing one night, wiping down tables in the smell of stale espresso and burnt sugar. She asked why I looked like I hadn't slept in weeks. I told her just enough. And she said flatly, "That's not unfair, Ethan. That's theft." The word hit me like a jolt. Theft. I hadn't called it that before. I'd been calling it sacrifice, family duty, even favoritism. But theft, it changed everything. It wasn't just unfair, it was criminal. The next twist came from Uncle Frank. He called me one evening, his voice low. "Ethan, your dad asked me to co-sign a business loan. Said it's just a formality for the hardware store." I froze. The store had been struggling for years. If they were asking for a co-signer, they were desperate. Desperation meant leverage. "Did he tell you about the college fund?" I asked carefully. Frank sighed. "I've got every transfer saved. Labeled, for Ethan's tuition and living expenses. 5 years. 50 grand each." I trusted them. My stomach tightened. But not with fear, with possibility. Proof. Real. Undeniable proof. I asked him to send copies. He hesitated, then agreed. The next morning, I had them in my inbox. Black and white. Clear as day. My parents couldn't spin this. Not anymore. That weekend, I went back to the house. Mom greeted me like nothing had happened. Arms outstretched. Smile wide. Dad sat at the kitchen table. Papers scattered, loan documents. Financial statements. Sit, he said. I did. And then I opened my binder. This is every transfer Frank ever sent. This is every withdrawal from my account. This is every loan I had to take out while you funded Tyler's life. Mom went pale. Dad clenched his jaw. I'm not here to argue, I said, my voice steady. I'm here to tell you how this goes. You're going to pay me back. You're going to tell the family the truth. And you're going to stop painting me as ungrateful. Dad leaned back, arms crossed. And if we don't, I smiled. Cold. Then I take this binder to the bank reviewing your loan. Let's see how eager they are to fund someone who misappropriated $250,000 meant for his son's education. The silence was suffocating. Mom whispered, You wouldn't ruin us like that. I leaned forward. You already ruined me. That night, I left the binder on the table. When I walked out, I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I just walked away. Steady. Every step fueled by something sharper than anger. Resolve. The week that followed was eerily quiet. No calls. No texts. Not even a guilt trip from Mom. I knew what it meant. They were regrouping, preparing their counterattack. But I wasn't afraid. For the first time, I held the cards. And then the invitation came. A family barbecue. To restore peace. Mom's text read. I laughed when I saw it. Peace. What they really wanted was control. But I went. Binder in hand. Evidence stacked and ready. Because I knew something they didn't. This wouldn't be another Sunday lunch. This would be a trial. And for once, I wouldn't be the defendant. The smell of charcoal and sizzling burgers should have been comforting. Kids ran in the yard. Sprinklers clicked in the distance. Laughter rose from clusters of relatives with paper plates. On the surface, it looked like any other summer barbecue. But I wasn't here for burgers. I wasn't here for laughter. I was here for Judgment Day. I carried the binder under my arm like a weapon. Inside it, 5 years of proof transfers from Uncle Frank. Bank withdrawals with my dad's signature. Screenshots of Tyler's endless vacations. I'd organized it so tight. So neat. It looked like trial evidence. Because that's exactly what it was. When I walked into the yard, conversations faltered. My mom's smile was brittle but wide. Ethan, so glad you came. She touched my arm like nothing had happened. My dad stood stiff near the grill, spatula in hand, looking more like a warden than a host. Tyler lounged in a lawn chair, sunglasses on, smirk already in place. And Uncle Frank, he gave me the smallest nod, like he knew why I'd come. I sat at the picnic table, binder flat in front of me. People around me chattered nervously. Plastic forks scraped across paper plates. But the hum of small talk felt thin, like everyone knew there was a storm waiting. My dad was the one to break first. He cleared his throat, the spatula tapping against the grill. Family is about forgiveness. We've had our share of disagreements, but it's time to move forward. I opened the binder. Pages rustled like the strike of a match. Moving forward requires truth. So, let's start there. The chatter died instantly. I laid out the first sheet, Uncle Frank's transfer slip. $50,000. Memo line. For Ethan's tuition and living expenses. Gasps rippled across the table. My aunt squinted at the paper. My grandmother leaned closer, her hands trembling. This was meant for me, I said, my voice cutting clean through the humid air. But instead, here's the withdrawal from my account 2 days later. $20,000 gone. I laid out the next paper, then the next, and here Tyler's Instagram post. Paris. That same week. Tyler scoffed, pushing his sunglasses up his nose. Seriously, you printed out my Instagram? Yes, I said. Because your vacations match perfectly with every withdrawal. Bali, Tokyo, Dubai. While I was pulling double shifts, living off instant noodles, you were spending my future. My mom's face had gone ghost white. Ethan, please. Not like this. Exactly like this. I snapped. Because you lied. For years. You let me drown under loans while you told the world I was too proud. Too dramatic. Too ungrateful. So let's put the truth where everyone can see it. I spread the papers like cards in a poker game. The timeline clear. Uncle Frank's transfers. Dad's withdrawals. Tyler's photos. My loan records. Every line connected. Every date matched. It wasn't just a pattern, it was a confession written in ink. The yard was silent except for the hiss of the grill. My uncle finally spoke, his voice low but firm. I gave you that money for Ethan. I trusted you. And you spent it on cars and vacations for Tyler, his gaze cut like a blade. My dad's jaw tightened. We did what we thought was best for the family. No, I said coldly. You did what was best for Tyler. Tyler leaned forward, smirking. Man, you're so dramatic. Look at you. Turning a barbecue into a courtroom. You got the money back. Didn't you? Move on. I turned to him slowly. While you were in Bali, I was sitting in my car, crying because I couldn't pay rent. While you were in Tokyo, I was eating ramen 3 nights a week. And you knew. You laughed. You told me I should thank you because your trips made you who you are. For once. His smirk faltered. My grandmother's voice shook as she whispered. Richard, Diane, is this true? Mom's lips trembled, tears welling. But Dad just folded his arms. We made choices. Ethan is strong. Tyler needed opportunities. I slammed my hand down on the table. Plates rattling. Stop calling theft opportunity. Stop calling neglect strength. This isn't sacrifice, it's betrayal. My aunt whispered. My God. I looked straight at my dad. Here's how this works. You're going to repay me. You're going to tell everyone the truth. And if you don't, I held up the binder. I take this to the bank reviewing your loan. Let's see how eager they are to back someone who misused $250,000 meant for their son's education. The silence was absolute. Even the kids stopped laughing in the yard. You wouldn't ruin us like that. Mom whispered. I leaned closer. My voice ice. You already ruined me. Uncle Frank spoke again. His tone sharp. He's right. You lied to me. Too. If you don't fix this, I'll back him. And believe me, I won't stay quiet. My dad's face cracked for the first time. Not anger. Fear. I stood, gathering the papers back into the binder. You have 1 week. And then I walked out. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just the sound of my footsteps crunching on the gravel. Steady and final. Behind me, the barbecue buzzed with whispers. Relatives stunned into silence. Others murmuring questions. But I didn't turn back. I didn't need to. For the first time in my life, they weren't dismissing me. They weren't laughing. They were staring at the truth they couldn't twist. And as I slid into my car, binder on the seat beside me, I let out a bitter laugh. Not of defeat. Not of relief, but of power. Because this time, they weren't in control. I was. Back in my apartment, the binder sat on my desk like a silent weapon. The summer night pressed hot through the window. But I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air. My phone buzzed once. Twice calls from Mom. Then a text from Dad, we'll talk. Don't do anything rash. I turned the phone face down. They were already scrambling. That was good. For days, I didn't hear a word. Not from them. not from Tyler. It was strange, the quiet after years of noise. No more guilt trips. No more "you're stronger" speeches. Just silence. And in that silence, my mind sharpened. I spent the evenings going through the binder again. Every page, every receipt, every screenshot. It wasn't just proof anymore. It was leverage. I'd built something they couldn't deny, couldn't bury under excuses. And I wasn't done. At the cafe, Mia noticed the calm on my face. "You look different," she said one night while wiping down the counter. I smirked. Maybe I finally learned not to play nice. She gave me a long look. "Whatever you're planning, don't just settle for an apology. Make them pay." Her words sank deep. Because that was the thing, I didn't just want repayment. I wanted reckoning. That weekend, Uncle Frank called. His voice was low. "Your dad reached out again. He wants me to co-sign the loan for the shop." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the binder. "And are you going to nod until I hear from you?" "If you want me to, I'll say no. If you want leverage, this is it." A slow smile crept across my face. They thought the barbecue was the end. They thought my threat was just that, a threat. But what they didn't know was I wasn't bluffing. I had the one thing they couldn't afford: the truth. Bound and organized. Waiting for the right moment. I looked at the binder. The stack of evidence gleaming under the lamplight. They wanted to make me invisible. I said quietly. More to myself than to him. But they just handed me the only weapon I'll ever need. I didn't tell him my plan. Not yet. Because plans are stronger when they grow in the dark. All I knew was this: the next move would be mine. And when it came, it wouldn't just shake my parents. It would break the story they'd been telling for years. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, you know the sting I've been living with. Betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from the people you're supposed to trust. My story isn't finished, not by a long shot. And if you want to see what happens when the quiet one finally fights back, stick around. Hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And make sure you subscribe. Because the next chapter, it's coming. And I promise, you won't want to miss it.